Okay, so there's no mic. It's just okay.
It's a wireless mic. We're hearing you.
Okay. Even though Rabbi Wilhelm said he's not going to make a hesped, I just do have to make a correction. Not because usually I wouldn't make a correction, but I'll make a correction just on the thing. It said a contributing editor. I happen to be a regular editor for Chabad.org, and the reason why I say it is because the class that I'm doing now, this was really written a number of years ago, when the first time the healthcare law passed. Two people made a shir, and then they wanted to make it into an article. And I was sort of the ghost writer, as you would call it, who made it into an article. So if you find some of this as an article, I'm not stealing it. The article itself, I actually wrote the article and changed things from the class that they made. I didn't want my name on it. They wanted to put my name. I didn't want it. I get enough hate mail for the other things that have my name on it. I don't need my name on it for things like this. But when I wrote it, so this was when it passed. It didn't go before the Supreme Court yet. If you've heard about the Obamacare, healthcare, punkt happens to be Hashgacha Pratis. I knew it'd be around when the new president's supposed to come in, but punkt happens to be supposed to happen tomorrow, and this is what they're actually discussing. Again, the healthcare law, and even in the article I wrote, even though they just passed it, it still didn't go before the Supreme Court, but it's going to be something that's going to be aimed al apeirik for many, many years. And here we are, I think it's 4 years later, and we're back.
And they're considering it tomorrow in the Supreme Court?
No. They considered it in the Supreme Court. When I wrote it, the Supreme Court had not yet ruled on it. But I said that no matter what they rule, it's still going to be an issue for many years. Tomorrow, from the first things that he's planning on doing, whether he's going to do it or he's not going to do it, repeal the law, not repeal the law. Now, just to give a preface, we know dina de malchusa dina. The government can do whatever they want, as long as it's a just law, which maybe dina de malchusa dina deserves a shir for itself. So this is not a discussion of what they are allowed to do, what they're not allowed to do, and it's not a discussion of whether the law works or it doesn't work, whether this is the best, whether the other ideas are better or not. This is more of what's coming from a Torah perspective. What is the Torah perspective on healthcare? And the healthcare law, just focusing on two main issues of the healthcare law, which has to do with us. Again, we're not getting into all the political stuff that we'll leave for the politicians. Is first of all, the healthcare law was that everybody has to get healthcare. It's mandated for everybody. And part of the reason, whether you like it or not, and if not, taxes, whatever you want to call it, that's already a separate issue. And second of all, one of the reasons for that is in order to afford for the people who don't have healthcare, they can't afford it, that you'll be paying for in other words, if everybody has healthcare, so then even though you're healthy, you're paying for the other person. So in other words, are you obligated to pay for the other person? How does it work? That's more or less what we're going to be discussing. The politics is not really what we're going to get into here. I'm not a politician. I hope not. So first, we'll start off at the beginning. It's not so simple, the concept of doctors, right? We say you're not well, you go to a doctor. But we find, we're gonna coming up to it soon, we finally got into Chumash Shmos. After we find by Mara, the Yidden are camping in the desert. They don't have, there's only bitter waters there in Mara, that's why it's called Mara. Hashem, Moshe performs Amnes, become sweet in waters, and after the incident of Mara, so Hashem says, Vayemer, Im Shemay Tishma, if you're going to listen to what I'm saying, so V'zantel Mitzvaysav, Shemart es Kalchucha V'Kalamachla, Sheshatim Mitzrayim Lo Yosim Melacha, any sickness which I afflicted in Mitzrayim, I won't put on you. Ki ani Hashem Reifecha, because I am Hashem, your doctor, your healer. So who's the healer? Hashem's the healer. And some people actually point to this. Listen, if we believe in Hashgacha Pratis, we believe that everything comes from God. If you believe everything comes from God, so what are you going for a doctor? If you became sick, that became from God. If you become better, that's also from God. There are groups that think like that. But we find there's a later on in Parshas Mishpatim, the Gemara brings, it says that if you injure somebody, so one of the things that you have to pay for is you have to pay to make sure that he's healed, and it says v'rapa yirapa, a double language, v'rapa yirapa, and the Gemara says on this that why does it say the double language? To teach us that a doctor has permission to heal. So the doctor has permission to heal, meaning if not for that, maybe the doctor wouldn't have permission to heal. It came from God. Now, this itself is not so simple, because we have one place that it says it's coming from Hashem, one place that's saying we're giving the doctor permission to heal. Some, like the Ibn Ezra, Rabbi Avraham Ibn Ezra from the early Rishonim, he actually says, he makes a difference between different types of injuries, or between an illness and an injury. Virapa Yirapa is a pasuk talking about when you injure somebody. So then you have to pay for his healing. You have to pay for other things also, but one of the things you have to pay for healing. So that is something that somebody hurt him. So he says like this, that it's if an injury or something, a sickness on the outside, you have to pay for. Something's b'primi, inside, that's really, you really should be praying to God for. The Taisvis on this Gemara is in Baba Kama, Pehei Amid Aleph. So Taisvis over there says the opposite. He says Virapo Yirapo. Why is it a double language? Because Virapo is one that I would think that it's only, if it only would say one, I would think it's only sicknesses that are bidei adam, that a person caused it. Virapo Yirapo is coming both a sickness that a person caused, also a sickness that came from God. The person became sick. That also you have permission to go to a doctor and get healed. The Ramban, just to conclude it, this concept, which is really a side issue, the Ramban sort of takes a middle road. He says, in theory, yes, we should pray to God and you'll be healed. And if everybody would be holding on that level, it would work. But we're not necessarily all holding on that level, and therefore you have to go to a doctor. Now, it says over here, this is incidentally, it's a side point, but it does have some bearing on the discussion of healthcare. It says, Virapa Yirapa, the Gemara learns that you give the money, you don't give the money to the victim. You give the money to the doctor. Why do you give the money to the doctor? First of all, we want to make sure that the money will go for medical expenses. This is not, it's not like an insurance claim sometimes for somebody damaged your car. So depending on how it works, sometimes they give you the money and you could go buy yourself, you could do whatever you want with that money. But no, the money here goes to the doctor. And one of the reasons is, first of all, to make sure it goes there. And second of all, we don't want people to start defaming the salient, the guy who injured him. He injured him. Now the guy is still injured. Why is he still injured? Because he didn't go to the doctor. But you don't know that. You just see him limping around because he never went to the doctor. So therefore we say no, the money has to go to the doctor. Nitin l'reshus l'reifa l'rapa is that the doctor is the one who gets the money. I didn't.
For one chapter.
Oh, so like this, I would say I didn't learn it yet, but that I'm not there yet. Now, where does this concept come from that you have to go to the doctor? We know that it says, we learned this from in Parshas Bereshis. Actually, it's not in Parshas Bereshis, in Chumash Bereshis in Noach. It says, "As dimchel na shesechem edrish miyad kol chayad rishenu miyad adam miyad ish erchav edrish is nefesh adam." I'm gonna be derish the person's nefesh. In other words, that we learn from here that a person's soul, his nefesh, nefesh is more the nefesh is the soul that's within the person. Adam hu nefesh, meaning that it's the part of the soul that's in the person. It belongs to Hashem, and therefore we know, which is a general rule, a person's life doesn't belong to you; it belongs to Hashem. And therefore, you have an obligation to take care of it. This is also one of the source of the concept of suicide would be prohibited. It's not your life. It's not your life, so you can't do with it what you will. Whether leisirzach applies to suicide is a separate discussion, is a whole discussion. But seemingly, according to most, this would apply. That it's not your nefesh. It doesn't belong to you. It belongs to God, and therefore you can't do anything to it. Even if the person, we go so far, as we know, it's brought down in halacha, that if a person asks you to hit him, you're not allowed to hit him, because he doesn't have permission over himself. It's not his body. You don't have, yes, it's your body that you're supposed to take care of it, and you're supposed to do whatever it is that you need to do, but it's not your body that you could harm it. And this leads to many other halachic discussions, whether unneeded, unwanted cosmetic surgery and things like that. There's whole discussions when yes and when not. It's all an offshoot of this issue, which we're not getting into, because it's not your body. But we see that it's brought to halacha that it's you have to heal yourself, and so much so that you have to take care of your health. So much so that it says chamir sekanta me'isura. Sometimes we're more strict about things that are dangerous than something that's just usur in the Torah. So we know as a general rule, it's more chamer if you're learning in Yerejeya, you have some meat and fish and things like that. Chamir sekanta me'isura, meaning that sometimes the Torah is more worried about the health. Why? Because it's not yours. It's your body. Hashem put you down on this world to do something about it. I don't know how much time I have.
So this would be part of Obamacare that halacha will be against, because Obamacare mandates that all these insurance companies allow a bunch of things like that would be considered al pi halacha harming, like it's mandatory that you pay for that.
Could be, but again, that's getting more into the details of the there are, in other words, that's getting into the details of the law, and I'm speaking more of a general outlook of the law, and I would say this, that probably almost any law, you're always going to have details that are not going to fit in. There's this concept that the Torah is always on the right or always on the left is usually not. It's usually, as the Rambam says, it's usually in the middle. The Torah is a lot more nuanced usually, and the halacha, you're not going to have anything that's mamish fits as a in the whole. Yeah.
I've got a question. This is not about Obamacare. It's about what you mentioned a few minutes ago. That you shall surely heal the guy. You shall.
Right.
What if he doesn't want to go? Are you?
Oh, we're going to get there. We're getting.
I'm going to ask: are you allowed to force him to go, or get a rob to force him to go? Okay, so.
Yeah. We're gonna get there. This was just as before you get to the healthcare about insurance and obligation to go. We have to know what's the parameters of going. You're going to the doctor. What's that all about? Once we know, okay, you are. It is not so simple, but the bottom line is that you do have to go. Not only that you have to go, but also what was important was that it's not your life. Meaning, which that's going to lead to what you asked, but we'll get to it a little bit more, that you can't, it's not really up to you, what you, always up to you, what you do or what you don't want to do. So now we're going to get to a step into about the obligations, about are you obligated to have health care. So now we know there's a famous pasuk, it's always brought. It's actually the end of the pasuk. Leisamed al dam re'acha, right? You see somebody in danger, you're not allowed to. You shouldn't stop. You shouldn't just stop and stand there and watch the show. You see something happening, someone's in danger. You got to go step in. You're obligated to step in. You're responsible. You have a responsibility to save him. But the truth is, there's actually two psukim about this. Two places that we learn this from. The Gemara in Sanhedrin, Ein Gimel, Amid Aleph says, "Minayin l'reis chaveri sheteheve b'anar, aychaya gerasa listim b'ainalav." He sees his friend drowning in a river. Animals is eating him up, or robbers are coming. Shuchayv latziloi, that you're obligated to save him. Talmud leimer leisam l'dam reyacha, right? You shouldn't stand idly by while on the blood of your brother. So the Gemara asks, "V'ha mahacha nafka." We learned this from here. Mahasam nafkis. We learned this from somewhere else. We learned this. Avedis gufim. We learned somewhere in the Bryce. It says Avedis gufim inayin. It says, where do we know that you're obligated to return his own lost himself? Meaning he himself is the lost object. That you should return him. This is coming from really the Sifri. The Sifri, in other words, the Sifri explains it more than the Gemara. It says, you should return the lost object to him. So the Sifri learns, Loi meaning even him. Even if he himself is getting lost, you have to return him. So we have another pasuk that already says that we have to save somebody. So the Gemara says, if I would just learn it from there, I would just say that you yourself, if you have the ability to save him, to return him. But to say that I have to take out expenses to save him, that maybe not. That's why I need the second verse, that you have to take out expenses. In other words, it might cost you money, but even if it is going to cost you money, you're still obligated to save him. Now, what? Yeah. What about it?
Not good.
To save another person or another yid?
Okay. So, I will say just that as a side point, right. So it says in the Gemara. Everybody quotes the Gemara that the Gemara says that anyone who saves a single soul is as if they saved the entire world, right? So people try to chap that it actually, if you look in the Gemara, it says kol nefesh achas mi Yisrael. But the truth is that this same Gemara says in Yerushalmi, and Yerushalmi it doesn't say Yisrael. But getting to this, so from the Yerushalmi with what?
Everyone was a Jew. In Babylon, not halacha.
Actually, in those days, it wasn't. In the times of Talmud Yerushalmi, there were more Jews in Talmud Bavel, there were more Jews in Bavel in those when Talmud Yerushalmi was written than where Talmud Yerushalmi was written. Actually, that's why the Talmud Yerushalmi was completed much earlier, because they were having a lot more tsaris. That's why Talmud Yerushalmi is also a lot more chopped up. It wasn't worked on as much, and so on. Another whole discussion for a different time. Because actually they had a lot more tsaris at that time going on, much more things going on in Eretz Yisrael than in Bavel. But it's a side thing. Whether we'll leave that for a different time. Whether it goes for a different discussion. All right. So we said that if you don't save this person, that you're able to save him even with your money, so you're actually transgressing a law, a prohibition. Lo yisam al dam reyacha is actually a prohibition. So if you're standing there and you're able to save him, even with your money, and you don't, you're being over on a prohibition. So we have over here that yes, there is a concept that if there's other people who are sick, I have an obligation to take care of them. So I can't just say that whoever, if I can take care of myself, I take care of myself. Who cares about the other person? We already see a little bit that in the Torah there is this concept that no, you are obligated to take care of the other people. Now the question is, how far does this obligation fall? Do I have to just empty out my wallet and just I could save a lot of people if I'll go bankrupt, but I'll save a lot of people.
Or risk your life for that
Risk your life, right? Risking your life is actually another whole another whole discussion, but that doesn't have to do with the healthcare. That's another discussion. If you're obligated to risk your life, there's another question if you're allowed to risk your life, which is it's actually a machlekes, which again that's not a discussion about the healthcare law. That's another discussion.
What is the question? Is an institutional question of what? I didn't get it.
What the question just now?
Obamacare. I don't understand. What's the question?
Well, the question right now, what I'm asking right now is on who is the obligation. We said, so I have a responsibility for other people, right? I'm not just, I don't have to just care about myself, about I be healthy, right? I'm responsible for if I see other people are in danger, are ill, or whatever it is. Right? You have to even spend money. There's even the concept of spending money to save and help out someone else. But how far does this go? Do I go bankrupt? How far? This was actually a question asked to the Tzitz Eliezer Yehuda Vladenberg. He recently passed away. He was a rabbi in Eretz Yisrael. He was also considered, I believe, the Rav. The rabbi of, I think it was Shari Tzedek, or one of the hospitals in Israel. He was the rabbi that they would turn to for medical issues. Maybe it was a different hospital. I believe it was Shari Tzedek. Anyways, a doctor one time sent him a question. He's a doctor, right? So he knows how to heal people. Is he obligated to provide free health care? Every time somebody walks in, whatever the issue is, he'll just provide free health care for everybody. Now, he could obviously do that. But if you provide free health care for everybody, first of all, he's going to be spending all his day providing free health care for everybody. He also has a family he has to feed. He probably has taxes and everything else that he has to pay for. So is he obligated or not? So he answered him that if you're the only doctor there, then yes. If you're the only one, there's no one else could help you, then yes, you're obligated to you're obligated to pay. However, if there's more than one doctor, we can't put the burden on one doctor and say that's only you that you have to help him.
So essentially this answers my question. If you have to save him as long as you could,